Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Florida's 9th District for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Hailing from the great state of Florida, we see book banning, eliminating AP African American Studies, silencing the LGBTQ community and voices, downplaying or denying the Holocaust, slavery, or genocide of Native Americans. As someone of Puerto Rican descent, I would find it particularly offensive that they're censoring Roberto Clemente's own biography and books about him, a amazing Puerto Rican and amazing baseball player and one who contributed so much to helping out children and families. And then I think about the Bucaneers, Puerto Ricans who were discriminated against and fought for our country nonetheless in World War II and before, who were honored in a bipartisan fashion. These stories need to be told. We even see a new bill that's attempting to allow politicians to sue news media easier because they use anonymous sources or not. I mean, if it's too hot, get out of the kitchen, right? This is part of our First Amendment rights. These are all censorship efforts happening in Florida under the grip of Governor DeSantis. The Republican majority last week got on the censorship crusade by continuing the book banning efforts. So I think we all agree there is some need for censorship discussions, and so I appreciate us having that here today. In the context of social media, the question is what to do about it. And Professor Overton, I appreciate you being here today. I want to talk briefly about 230 reform, since that's really a lot of what we're talking about. I am empathetic to the discussions that other witnesses have said here today about being silenced. I think, Professor, first of all, it's great to have a GW law professor here as being an alumni, and Dr. Dunn's also an alumni of the med school. We'll give him credit for purposes of this hearing. I want to focus on two common ground issues. Federal civil rights violations that happen over social media, and then protecting our kids. So let's first start out with efforts that would be clear violations if someone did it outside of social media. What are some ideas on what we could do to draft legislation to ensure that civil rights are protected within the social media sphere?
You know, one idea is a carve-out for civil rights violations. So we have a carve-out for IP, for federal criminal law, and for a few other categories. And one would be this carve-out for federal civil rights violations.
Can you expound on that a little bit?
Sure.
How do you think we should put it together?
So Airbnb, for example, they design a platform that shows somebody's face and you know, their name, and there's discrimination happening on their platforms. But right now they're saying they're not liable because of 230. Facebook, basically, their algorithms steer housing and employment ads to white folks away from Black and Latinos, and they've got drop downs that allow for folks to target on those bases. But they say, hey, we're not liable because of Section 230. So this carve out would basically say, hey, 230 applies generally, but not for federal civil rights violations, just like it does with IP, just like it does with federal criminal law.
And about protecting our kids, you know, we have disagreements over books and things like that, but where there's common ground, yes, we all believe parents should be able to have a strong say in which books their kids are reading. They should just not be able to ban what other kids and their parents decide is best for their kids. And in the case of the Utah law, they're empowering parents to make decisions about access to social media pre-18, which I think there's definitely some positivity there as far as where we could go with something like this. What would you say we could be doing to protect our kids better vis-a-vis 230 reforms?
Yeah, I certainly think this concept of requirements in terms of Utah is not a bad thing. I think the big thing, though, is if we're chilling people from moderating and platforms from moderating, we're going to see more pornography. We're going to see more obscenity, sexual solicitation. All of that comes with restraints on moderation. So that's a big concern I have.
But if we established having some requirement pre-18 for parental consent, do you think that would have a substantial effect based upon your research and helping protect our
Yeah.
kids from some of those things.
I think that that could, and I certainly would love to talk to you more about it and study it in more detail.
Thanks, and I yield back.